group at a hippie church down on 16th Avenue. I think it's called Music Row something now. And that youth group experience was changing my life. That church had a coffee shop next door that on Saturday nights, musicians would come and play. There wasn't a ticket charge. We would just sit cross-legged on the floor, and it really was such an amazing era. And anyway, so I went to the head of my school and said, could I do a chapel program? Because I just wanted to bring part of that hippie church feeling to my prep school. And she said, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm not sure yet, but I'll figure it out. I invited a friend of mine whose voice was stronger than mine to sing with me. And we practiced and practiced, and I wrote songs to do this chapel program at my high school. And anyway, all that to say, we did that chapel program. I was so involved in my youth group. I just kept writing, but just privately. And the way crazy things happened, these two youth group leaders that were college roommates, one of them said, hey, I've got some studio time at Belmont University, Belmont College at the time. He already had a studio job. He said, but they've got free studio time for students. Do you want to come record your songs that you've written? I was like, for sure. And so I made a tape of those songs I'd written to give to my mom and dad. I think I asked him for one copy so I could have a copy and give a copy to my mom and dad. Anyway, there's no way to explain this, but those two youth group leaders who were great friends of mine had opportunities open up in their life. And they looked at me and said, you want to do this? You want to walk through this door? And I said, are you walking with me? And they said, yes. And I would have been happy singing at a coffee shop. I never had an aspiration to sing. I never sang in a hairbrush looking in the mirror. There were always better people, more prepared, more qualified, more organized than I was. But the opportunities came, and those two youth group leaders were Brown Bannister and Mike Blanton. And I just look at their incredible musical gifts, and I go, did I draw the lucky ticket to be in their circle of influence? Life would have been so different. And just with all of you, I figure maybe not that many people would be interested in the story, but you have gone the extra mile to be involved in my story by showing up. And so driving out here, I was like, we've never, Mike and I sat down to tell the story to each other. So, having to wiggle my toes. But yeah, and every one of us has a story. There's nothing exceptional about mine. It was just lived on a bigger stage. But everybody's story matters. We are all so connected to each other. And I just want to celebrate my connection to Mike Blanton today. He hired every band member. Every great thing that I was a part of for a few decades was because he had a dream. And he was like, come on, hold my hand, here we go. And I remember Mike and Dan Harold were managers, and they said, every other artist calls us, what are you doing? What are you doing? What's the next call? What's going on? What's going on? And they said, with Amy, we feel like we have aired up the hot air balloon. It is tethered to the ground, and we are trying to get her in the basket, and there's claw marks all the way to the basket. And we finally got her in there. But, well, the creative mind that aired that balloon and got that basket is Mike Glenn, and I want you to meet him. And he's going to tell you his story. Please make welcome Mike Glenn.
Amy than I do. But today I'm going to be able to, and I am a little shaken. I'm just like, wow, I was expecting 50 people here, and half of them my friends. So, gosh, I'm so honored. Jennifer, Amy, thank you for inviting me to come up here, because I asked for these LPs because I said that's really my life story. There's really everything that I went through, and helping Amy. We were doing it all together, and it was just an incredible journey. So what you're going to hear today is, in the Bible, there's 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. This is the Gospel of Michael Blanton regarding Amy Grant. So many other, I've heard other podcasts, and people have so many other opinions and ideas. I think this happened, I think that happened. I go, they have no clue what they're talking about. So I'm not the final voice on everything, but I am the guy that was, and I'll say it this way. When I tried to come to Nashville and get a job in the music business and failed miserably, could not get hired. I was running sound out at Opryland, and finally said it's time for me to go back to Texas, get a big boy job and grow up and get after life. And I went back, and then Word Records called me about a year after that and said, would you come work and come to Waco and come work? And I said, yeah, I'll come do that. So finally I got in the record business, but I didn't know that much about gospel music at that point. But I had grown up, in a strong faith family, and that was such a core of me that I was very excited to, take what I believed, which at that time, my mom had clearly told me you cannot be in entertainment because people that are of faith, that are in entertainment, you're just going to get eaten alive. You're going to lose your faith, you're going to lose all that. So I walked into this game with Word to be a junior A&R guy, and it was the beginning of my music career. And literally while I'm there starting as an A&R guy, they signed Amy. And Amy and I, it was phenomenal. So I'm starting out my music career as an A&R guy. And let me tell you, A&R guys are, at that point, back in those days, we were the quarterbacks. Literally, they would hand you an artist, and you would literally, actually decide on the cover, you pick the songs, you'd be involved in everything that would happen with that artist. You were the quarterback that was driving everything. And those days are kind of gone now because everybody does whatever they want to. You don't need a lot of help anymore. But back then, that was kind of the beginning, because Amy and I had been in this youth group that she referred to. It was a match made in heaven. I'm just telling you, it was one of those things from the very beginning, because I knew her. I dated her sister, Mimi. I wanted to be adopted into their family. I loved her mom and dad. It was phenomenal. So it was just an incredible connect all of a sudden, and we started. This was the first album. And Jennifer just said she knows me well enough because I'm incredibly picky about sound and art. She said, "Well, I know you didn't have anything to do with this," and I said, "I did do this." And the reason we did this was because Amy was so young that we were trying to make her look older. We were trying to make her look like she was a mature artist. So that cover came out, and everybody's going, "Why would you make her look like that?" Well, we're trying to make her look older. So thank you for your mercy on that. Wow. But that's where we began. Later they recovered it, which is kind of cool. Much better. Then we came out with this lovely, and this is where my father's eyes was kind of the beginning of people really paying attention to Amy. It was kind of people literally kind of going, okay, this girl's got something. So these two weren't bad, but they weren't selling that hot. And then this one came along and was starting to really, really connect, which was really cool. And then this, I'm still at Word at this point, Never Alone. Never Alone literally we shot the cover of this out at the Grand Ole Opry. There's a back room back there. And of course, we filled it up with friends and family. But it was great. So I thought, okay, I'm halfway decent A&R guy. I'm picking good songs, working with Amy, advising her on, we'd go on a tour, or she'd go out, and I'd actually go help her buy boots or help her go buy clothes. Because I was going, this is what you should wear. This is what you should be doing. I don't know if you remember all that, but okay, good. The gospel according to Michael Bland. I just remember that's all. So literally, after this, though, I had been asked to work on a rock band because of my A&R, and I had decided to leave. And there was another record label that said, would you work as an A&R director, executive producer on a band called DeGarmo Key out of Memphis? I mean, this is so fun because typically I tell people I worked with Amy Grant, Michael W. They go, yeah, who were they? And I'm going, how old am I? I mean, literally, how? The fact that DeGarmo Key is fantastic. So the cool thing was that I executive produced that album, which was their only Grammy-nominated album, called This Ain't Hollywood, which was really a really fun thing. But what it did, I said, I really want you guys to work with Amy. And because I knew we were in a transition of kind of getting to that I was leaving to actually start a new company, and I didn't want Amy to record another project yet, I said, I want to do a live album. So I presented that, and everybody said, okay, we'll do a live album, which was one concert, but became two albums. I love it. You guys, see, I know y'all know more of this than I do. Which that became this album. And this album. Okay, here's the behind the scenes story on this. So literally, we make this album at ORU in Tulsa, Oklahoma, live concert. And you been there? You were there? Fantastic. Well, Amy couldn't sing that night, so it was a little scary. It was a little scary. You can jump in here anytime you want. This is your show, so literally we make this album with DeGarmo Key, and then at that time there's a thing called Estes Park, Christian Artist Seminar up in the Rockies, and if you were in Christian music, you literally had to go to Estes Park every summer in August, and so we put out these albums, and I'm super proud because now we put a rock band with Amy, and that had not, she was almost considered like a folk singer playing guitar, but now she's with a band. We actually go to the Estes Park, and Dan Harrell and I stand at the back. I think Chaz was our tour manager, and he's there kind of taking care of Amy. Amy got up and played the first song, and there was no applause. No applause. 2,500 people. I know. Literally. I'm thinking, how rude, and what are they going to do to me? This is going to be a bad night for Michael Bland. Literally, I was in shock. I was going, now, what is going on? And Amy, DeGarmo Key are up on stage playing, and they're literally they're just looking at it going, we're rock guys, we're just going to play it louder. We'll play it louder. So she did the next song, and there was no applause. And I'm sitting there going, okay, I've never seen this before. And I think about and then I look at Dan and go, okay, these people, they're upset about something, but they're going to really be upset at you and me. So I don't know if I've ever told Amy this. After the third song and no applause, and by the way, she won the night over eventually because she's an incredible, gracious person. But we left. As the hot managers, we left, got in the car, drove back to the hotel. And I sat down and I said, okay, I don't know what's going on, but I need to make an album that will literally, people will know where she's coming from and what she's all about. That we don't need this kind of confusion, whatever's going on. And most of it was because she had a band. That was really the kind of the crux of it. People didn't want her to change from, all this. This is what they wanted her to be. But that next album. So that night, I literally, as an A&R guy, said, okay, I need to find songs. We need to create something. And I'd always wanted to make a record at Caribou Ranch. And Caribou Ranch was a famous recording studio in Colorado that Elton John, the Beach Boys, Chicago, had all recorded at. And so after the Estes Park, we drove to Caribou And I literally went and met the owner and said, I want to bring a young artist up and record an album up here. And he said, please do. And he literally said, I've not been in the studio over a year because my brother, who was the engineer there, died in a hang gliding accident. And he said, I've not been back in that studio. And I said, sorry to hear that. Thank you for letting us come. You know, our budget allowed for about 2 weeks for us to bring all the band up there and bring the players. So Brown and I put together the project and literally went to up there to Caribou, which was a phenomenal retreat for Amy, her family, for me and my family. And which, by the way, my daughter Chelsea's here with us. Chelsea, wave your hand. Just wave your hand. So, thank you. She's my right arm, my backup girl. She can tell some of these stories better than me as well. But that project with Age to Age, and before I had left Nashville to go to Caribou, after we decided to record there, Michael Card brings me a song that to my back door on a cassette, which I still think I have. That's El Shaddai. And that song was the cornerstone for this next project. But this album literally was the game changer. Finally, people were clearly going, we love Amy Grant, and this became the first gold platinum album in Christian music that exploded. It was incredible to go from the failure of the Estes Park and then get all the way to the beginning of recording Age to Age and watching that release was an incredible coming out of a pretty big failure for me, it felt like. But it was a phenomenal turnaround when we released it. Now, around about that time, also, we started Reunion Records, and I signed Michael W. Smith at that time, and Michael W. came in as a songwriter because he wanted to be on Amy's album, and he walked in, he played me some music, and there was a song on his cassette that was Friends Forever. And I looked at him, and I said, man, if Amy sings this, it's going to be a home run for her from now on. But we could start your career with this. And he was going, what do you mean? I said, go home and write 10, 15 more songs and come back and we'll decide. We didn't even have a record label at the time. We just made it up when he came back. I said, we're going to start a record label with you. And that was the beginning of Reunion Records, which was right at the same time of Age to Age coming out. So it was a phenomenal beginning for us. And that was really the beginning of Blanton Herald in 1980, we launched Blanton Herald. We had Age to Age coming out. We had Michael W. Smith, and we felt like we were kind of off to the races. It was just an incredible time to get going. But right after we did Age to Age, then I go, Amy. And I'm not sure why I would say this as the A&R guy. Remember, this is the Gospel Michael Blanton. It hit me because we'd been up in Caribou and it snowed. It snowed before somehow. And it just triggered in my mind that Amy should do a Christmas record. And it was like, I remember people quizzing, going, why do you want her to do a Christmas record? And I was just going, I just think we need to do a Christmas record. We'll just call it God Inspired. It was just one of those terms, let's go with this. And I think part of it's because Age to Age was so big, it was like, let's not jump back into this so quickly to go do something else. Let's do a Christmas album. Thinking it'll be kind of an in-between project and we'll go from there. Man, this is not an in-between project. This changed all of our lives. And today, I mean, literally every year, I live to hear Amy's Christmas music. So proud of what that is. Then we came back with the next project, and by this point, I told Amy, and the fun thing about her, because I probably named myself her big brother because we did everything together. I mean, literally did everything, and we had really created a great bond of working together. And with Brown Bannister, with all the producers, but I was still the A&R guy. I was the guy trying to quarterback it, trying to make it all fit and work and everything. So we put this together, and it was the beginning of really the big touring time for Amy. We started out, I don't know, anybody remember this tour? Wow, you guys are scary. Okay, so with this tour, we thought we were really big shots, and we were taking Amy on the road. We were taking Michael W. Smith to open, and we had this cool sign like this that opened at the very end of the concert that was like straight ahead. And every time that curtain would open, I would just cringe because that sign would start swinging at the back. And I was going, we do not look professional. We do not look good. But that was the beginning of Straight Ahead. And that was kind of the beginning of starting to get pop airplay, which I told to Amy when we started Blanton Herald. I said, my goal is for us to be people of faith who play on pop radio. That we literally go play on the big boy, dance floor, and we try to make that happen. She said, whatever you want to do, let's go. That's my girl. That's my girl. Which was awesome. So we're out touring, and then let me get it right. Question?
You're doing a great job.
The problem is I've got too many stories. That's what I'm doing. You got that? Okay, great.
We have a concert for you tonight.
Well, I'll be there. I will be there. So we're out on touring and everything's kind of growing, happening for Reunion, for Michael W., now we signed Kathy Tricoli. Right behind that, we signed Rich Mullins, which was just so literally we're just watching everything grow. Come back. And we go, Amy and I, with the band out on the road, we go see this crazy movie that people are talking about called Footloose. I think we were in Colorado. And we all came out just fired up because it had kind of a faith-forward thing to it, but it was dancing. It was just fun. So literally, I told Amy, and I said, we need to make an album that makes people want to dance. There is a poster of 5 of these shots that we put together. And the reason we did 4 covers is because I was trying to go, we've got to show movement. We got to show dance thing. And so in my thoughts, if you went to a record store and you flipped through these, you would go, oh wow, that's like she's actually dancing. That's just the coolest thing I've ever seen. And I'm just thinking, these will stay in the record stores just like that, and people will do just like that. And they'll buy them and they go, that's just great, we're all dancing. So I didn't realize they were eventually going to pick one and go, that's the cover. And, so that cool idea was a great launch, but it was not it didn't fall through. But it was literally us bringing, I would call entertainment and dance into a new audience that was ready. They were ready. And Footloose, it was a great movie to actually kind of spike that. And then we came back later and we decided we've got to do another in-between project. And this is a favorite. If you've never heard this album, this is like a favorite. And I believe that's when we first met Wayne and Chris Eaton. I think I brought Chris Eaton in as a writer. I'd signed Wayne Kirkpatrick as a writer. So they were all part of the family. And so we were watching everything just grow and grow and happen. And after this album, one more time. Maybe. I actually tried to take one when I got it. I was going, I need to take some. A handful of people. Thank you. Potato chips, have you ever heard? Y'all scaring me. Way too much. So, at that point, we had signed a deal with A&M Records and Word Records, which had never been done before. A pop label and a Christian label releasing the same product had never been done before. And that was because of Amy was gaining so much success on the touring side, and it was exploding. There was a moment in there where Michael Amardian, who I know you know who that is, Was he there last night?
Tonight, he's coming tonight.
So he sends me a song, which I think I still have the cassette for, that with an iconic artist named Pete Cetera, who was one of my favorites from Chicago. And I was so excited about it, and of course immediately got it to Amy, and immediately we started talking about doing it because he had come to one of her shows out in California at the Forum that she had sold out. So Pete Cetera came and said, we got to do a song with this girl. So it was literally, Pete Cetera coming to Amy's show, hearing her voice, and Michael Marty producing, and that was her The Next Time I Fall in Love, which was a #1 pop hit. That was really when she broke all the way through on that. So, he's killing it. And when Amy and I went out to do the video with Pete Cetera, she looked at me and she said, okay, I'm going to put my whole heart and soul into doing this thing really, really well. And you're just going to have to protect me. Just make sure I don't go too far. I don't do anything crazy. Just make sure. And I said, that'd be my pleasure. As your big brother, I can do that. So from there, we had great music, great stuff was happening. And then we decided with A&M Records that we're going to make what we think is the quintessential greatest album ever. Leave me on. Honestly, we all thought, all of us on the team thought, this is the best album that's ever been made. Literally, the songs, the lyrics, the sequence, the way it all flowed, it was phenomenal. And we thought it would get critical acclaim. Honestly, we kept thinking it's going to be that big because what's happening in pop music and happening in Christian music, it's going to get critical acclaim. And we didn't get any acclaim. It was like, okay, because it was a I think we shocked everybody of the maturity of this project. But I'll tell you, of all the albums that I was a part of, this is the one people talk about a great deal is the Lead Me On. The video that we shot for that, if you find it on YouTube, it was, we shot in 3 different locations. It was just stunningly beautiful. And it was just great music, great lyrics, and incredibly proud of that. And after that album, and after that project, and Amy gave me a card that I still have today that basically said, because it didn't connect on pop radio, it didn't really connect on the level that we thought it would. And she gave me a card, she said, go make the pop album on me that you want to make. That's what she said. And I went, okay. And up to that point, Brown Bannister had been the producer on everything that we had ever done, literally. And at the point I said, we've got to work with some other producers. And I told her, I said, we're going to work with 3 producers on one project, which at that time was not a thing. Most time you'd have one producer work on everything. And I called Michael Marty and said, I'd like for you to work on this next project, and called Keith Thomas and Brown Bannister. Now I'll tell you, because Brown and I've talked about it, I don't think he'd be unhappy for me to share, but he literally said, you hurt my feelings so much when you said we're going to work with 2 other producers, because he had literally been driving the producership all the way up to this point. But we needed to do something different. And at that point, I wouldn't even let the 3 producers hear what each guy was doing. So once again, I'm in the driver's seat in my mind, picking the songs along with Amy and finding music that I think will make a really strong pop record. And Amy's going along with it, but these guys are all working individually. They're not working together. They're all working on their group of songs. And the coolest thing about that is that this album was the peak of that happening. This was really the biggest surprise in some ways, but it was the one that really captured the pop radio thing, and pop actually just captured the world. And the funny thing about it is, Baby Baby, which was the first single on there, literally as we're finishing the mixing of the album, Keith Thomas is producing that song. Jerry Moss, one of the owners of the label, says, we're going to pull Baby Baby off the record. Jennifer and I just talked about this last week. She said, I think weren't they just going to pull it as a single? I said, no, they were pulling it off the record. And Keith Thomas and I immediately said, if we could get like Aretha Franklin to actually sing on Baby Baby, this will be a phenomenal hit song. I mean, it'll be great. So we both started working. He was mixing, and we were both chasing Aretha's manager to get her to actually sing that song, Baby Baby. And before that could happen, there was a young radio guy named Mark Mazzetti who literally had moved from radio. You know Mark. Oh, what a great name. David Handley was the A&R director at A&M, and he and I were incredibly great friends, but he was letting me do whatever it is I was doing for Amy on this project. And literally that Mark Mazzetti, between the time Jerry Moss says we're pulling Baby Baby, he had moved into the A&R department. He heard a cassette on Baby Baby, and he sent it to one of his radio friends down in San Diego on the pop radio station. And they played that song on radio, on pop radio, and it exploded. I mean, I've never seen a song go that big, that fast, and it just went around the world. And we literally, we were excited, but we were shocked about it. So it was incredible. And so that in 1991, that album received the top pop nominations for Best Female Pop Vocalist, for Best Record of the Year, Best Song of the Year, Best Album of the Year, and Best Producer with Keith Thomas of the Year. That album on the pop. We were up against Bonnie Raitt. We were up against Natalie Cole. I can't remember exactly who else. Jennifer may know. Oh, are you? That's right. Thank you. You guys are scaring me. This is a little scary. But that actually, I thought, okay, we are now off to the races. This is the way it's going to be. And then, that next album that came, which I think will be the new LP, House of Love. And I'll end with the story, I literally could go for the rest of the day. But the next album was House of Love, and there was a song called House of Love that I flipped out over because it had such a cool pop R&B sound to it. And I took it to Amy, and she said, I cannot sing this. And I said, no, you can't. You definitely can sing this. And she'd go, Michael, I'm not going to sing it. And I would go, okay. And I come back the next day and go, you got to sing this song. And she's like, I cannot sing this song. This is not my style. It's just not me. And I said, I'm just telling you, this is a really, really big song, and you ought to do it. And she finally got really in my face and said, I'm not going to sing that song. You're in charge. So I left for 2 weeks. I came back and said, I really want you to sing this song. And she was like, what is the deal? And I said, let me get another label mate of yours, Sting, and let's get him to sing it with you. And that way it'll be a cool duet, a guy-girl. It'll be a killer pop song. Sting was huge at that point. He was on A&M. So I went up to try to get that underway with Sting to sing with Amy on House of Love. Amy goes off. Amy goes off and does a Christmas concert with guess who? And she comes back, and somehow she and Vince have a conversation. Vince comes back. Amy calls me and goes, I love this song. I went, what? I didn't even got Sting committed. What do you mean? And she said, I found the perfect voice. I found the perfect guy. And I was like, okay, what have you done? And she and Keith Thomas had gone to the studio, and Vince had sung the other part of that song, which was phenomenal. Sting would have been good. She had the better idea. But it was an incredible moment that literally the making of music and the making of songs is kind of a roller coaster. You're going, I think this will be great. I don't think it'll be great. And so there's probably songs that we dismissed that you guys would obviously love, and there's probably songs there are so many songs that we did that connected with so many of you, obviously, that it's an incredible, great joy for me to be here to honor her, to honor Jennifer, and thank you, Tracy, and I literally am overwhelmed at seeing this many people at this thing. I was totally caught off guard. So, but I don't know if there's Q&A. I don't know if that's what you want. I'm sure you're tired of sitting on your butts down here. So, happy to take a few questions. Yeah.
I was gonna, just because you mentioned it before.
Okay.
But another Mike Blanton, Amy Grant, I think kind of brilliant moment was after the success of Heart in Motion, following it with another Christmas record.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because of what they had done after
Christmas to
Baby
Remember.
to that.
Yeah, that was a, at that point, Christmas was working, but that next album, After Heart Motion, was like just, I mean, it was just the best. And it was like the perfect timing for another in-between, but who knew that was going to become its own industry, become its own big story. So for Christmas, and I still have people coming up to me every year going, well, listen to Amy Grant all year, you know, and especially at Christmas, that's our music. I do get a little upset when I look at the charts and they're saying, here's the top 25 Christmas album, and Amy's like number 22. I'm going, what? You know, what are you talking about? So, so that was a incredible gift that that Amy, you know, wanted to do Christmas, and that turned out the way it is. And I think, in some ways, it really brought back the tradition of Christmas that I think we wanted for our family at that time, which was incredible. So questions. Does anybody have something or a statement you want to tell me I forgot? Because you obviously know more than I know. Yes, ma'am.
Well, first of all, I'll start this with a statement, and I just want everybody to know that I'm tired of this rivalry between Amy and Mariah, because Amy is Ow! No, but I just saw that Unsung Heroes movie, and I was so surprised because to me, in my world, Lead Me On was huge, and I loved it, you know, and everybody I knew loved it. And in that movie, they were saying that it just totally bombed the tour in Australia. And so what you said today was kind of explains it, but do you know any more details about why?
Oh yeah, it's really funny you say that, because I still haven't seen the movie, but I had friends texting me going, oh, we just saw the movie. They're talking about the tour that was supposed to happen in Australia that Amy didn't go and blah, blah, blah. And so here's the backstory on that. And by the way, right after I got that phone call, I actually texted David Smallbone, who is the dad, and was the promoter in that Australia tour, and he was the one trying to put that together. And the reason we didn't go is because they weren't selling tickets. And so I texted him and said, look,
We did go.
did we go with Dan?
So, just because I have seen the movie and I worked it out.
Come on.
So, go to the mic.
Come stand by me.
So the reason we knew about it is they sent a licensing request for the music, and they were requesting Baby Baby, Place in This World, and Not Lead Me On, another song. That's what Love Is For. And in the description of the licensing request, it says Smallbone family goes to a sold-out Heart in Motion concert and gets inspired to get involved in Christian music. Cool, all right, because that was all before my time, you know, I wasn't here yet. And, here, I was somewhere else. Anyway, but I didn't sign it. I was planning on it, but I didn't sign it. Then they sent another request, an updated request, that said Smallbone's family lose their fortune because of an unsuccessful Heart in Motion tour. And I was like, I don't think that happened. So we kind of dug into it, and they had it all set as Heart in Motion, which was not Heart in Motion, it was actually Lead Me On. But they had already shot the movie, and so I had to work with the producers and fix what we could. The truth of the matter is the tour did play, and it played in arenas, and sold about 7,000 seats per arena, but like in a 10,000 seat arena. And David Smallbone had basically based his offer on full sellouts because the last tour had sold out, but then Australia went through a recession. So instead of selling 10,000 tickets, he was selling 7,000 and 8,000 tickets and was losing money. But on our side, to get everything over there to Australia, we weren't making money. So we updated it to the right tour, the right context. They added the inflation storyline to the movie, but the shot of like 10 people watching an Amy Grant show, I was like, that's just not a, but we didn't make him reshoot it, so.
So I texted David and said, I don't know everything that happened back there on the touring side, but you know, I'm so proud of you guys, so happy for Unsung Hero, And you know we love you. And by the way, I apologize for that thing. He called me immediately, David, and he said, you never need to worry or apologize for any of that. That whole thing that happened was the best thing that ever happened to my family. We would have never come to America if that had not happened with Amy like that. And he just said, I'm just telling you, it's the best thing ever happened to my family that about that tour and that event. So that's a little bit more story. Jennifer, thank you.
I was wondering who wrote the intro to Praise to the Lord? Because I was in college at that time, and the Christian music stores, you could go and listen. We're waiting for the new one to come out. I have those earphones on, my eyes and my heart, and that intro was just about ready to burst. And I think to this day, it's one of the most fabulous. The song, of course, is fabulous, but the introduction to me is just, here's the rock.
Literally, I was at a festival called Nashville Shores here in Nashville, and an American Airlines stewardess came up to me with a cassette and said, would you listen to this artist? And it was Rich Mullins. And I said, yeah. So I took that back home and listened to it, and on there was Sing Your Praise to the Lord. And I flipped out. I don't know if I can tell the whole story. Rich was a very interesting, brilliant artist, musician, writer, brilliant. And so I'm flipping out over the song, just like you're talking about. I'm going, this is incredible. And I'm playing for Amy and for Brown, and their same reaction we're going, but we're not going to do the same 14-minute long song, you know. We're gonna bring it down to a bit more commercial in our minds at that point. And but I called Rich and I just said, hey, we want to cut your song. We're super excited. We'd love for you to come down and meet us at some point. And I said, so why is a song? Why is it like this and so long? And he said, well, you know, you have to have a lot of foreplay before you get to climax. And I'm like, hello? And I literally went, you've got to be kidding me. Can you come down tomorrow? We need to talk. So he came down. We developed a great relationship. We recorded the song, which was phenomenal for Amy. And we signed him to his first recording career. And he, you know, at one point, because Michael reunion was all at Geffen. Amy was at A&M. We were trying to make history with playing in the big boy dance floor, the big music thing. And I looked at Rich and I said, you know, there's some of your music, I mean, it's incredible lyric music, but some of it throws me back towards a Phil Collins type of music. That I'd love to produce it that way. And I went, no, I'm not going to be Phil Collins. I'm not going to be Sting. I'm going to be Rich Mullins. So I was like, okay, great. So took Amy's keyboard player, Reed Arvin, and I said, Reed, I need a brilliant musician to work with this young artist. And Reed became the kickoff producer for Rich, which eventually he went and did his own thing called Ragamuffin, the Ragamuffin Band. So most people love. So, but that's where that song, that's the history of that whole thing. Yes, ma'am.
So how did Amy's writing tie in to all of your producing?
Well, Amy was, I mean, there's a little bit of writing in all of us. In fact, I co-wrote a song with Brown Bannister for Kathy Tricoli that went #1, and I said, okay, I'm done writing. That'll be the end of that. And here's the reason, because I really wanted to be more of the executive producer that was looking 30,000 foot down, where are we going, rather than be the guy, is the guitar in tune, or is the vocal perfect? So Brown was the perfect counterpart to me, being at 30,000 foot, and he's at 1,000. But at that point, everybody, there was never a time that Amy wasn't a writer. It was just trying to find, during those days, you would literally go find the best songs, and you would record them, because that's what it was all about. But she started writing. By the time my memory is, and that she, after Wayne came to the picture, Wayne Kirkpatrick, and with Michael W., they were such brilliant writers that putting them together was like, it was like putting puzzle pieces that needed to be together. So the one I remember right now that's popping in my head is Baby Baby. And I remember bringing her the track that Keith Thomas did on just the track. She's got a brand new baby, Millie, that she's dancing around in her kitchen trying to write the lyrics for that song. And then later, as that song exploded, and I'm thinking we're like the coolest kids in town. And she's telling me, no, this song's about my baby. I was dancing in the kitchen. I'm going, no, it's about, you know, it's a pop song. We don't talk about babies in pop songs. Amy had a way of just making it always sound incredible and work. So, am I missing something there?
I hope you can hear, but I'm speaking for myself, but I've been listening since I was 10 years old, and I know most of us here would, you know, practically take a bullet for Amy, and for sure. But anyway, I just wondered, a lot of behind the scenes, I was always just fiercely protective as she was going through all of these, you know, bad press, different things, whatever. And some of my family members would even say, don't say anything about Amy Grant around Carolyn because she might take you down, you know? And that's still true today. But anyway, that's for Amy. But how was that happening behind the scenes with everybody? I know she's so gracious, but how did you guys deal with all of that?
So the best way I can answer that is to tell you at that time, when we did Baby Baby, as mad as they were at the DeGarmo Key concert back at Essence Park, well, people were not happy about Baby Baby because they're going, what are you doing? You're trying to go pop. And it was definitely it was definitely part of the plan for us to do what we did. But, when we came back and Word Records, the other label, literally said, we're not going to sell this album. And so we were dealing with A&M watching a pop song and a pop record starting to take off, and our Christian counterparts, where we'd started, they said, we're not going to sell it. And I'm going, this is incredible. So we challenged them to do some home studies with women only, no men. And we said, go do a research study, and they went to St. Louis, Chicago, and Dallas. And they did that with several women, and it was unanimous. They all said, you've got to put this album out. So Word came back and literally said, okay, we're in, we're going. And so I remember being on a ski trip with Roland Lundy, who was the president of Word, and he was like going, I guess we're idiots. I don't know why we miss it, but it was not something that the leadership was behind at the time, but they got way behind it and actually became a top song on Christian radio at the same time it was on pop radio, which was incredible. But you roll through those things believing we know where we're going. And I used to tell people, even people would say, you're trying to make Amy look too sexy on the photographs. I go, well, how do you mess this up? Literally, every guy that ever shot a video or shot a picture of her fell in love with her. They would always talk to me going, is she available? I'm her big brother and you're not going there. So that would never happen. But literally, when she and Michael were both in the People magazine for Most Beautiful, people would say, I think you're trying to, I'd go, well, let's think about that. Sexy's okay. We're not trying to sell sex, we're trying to sell beautiful. We're trying to sell, what they are, what they literally are. And I would stand by that today to go, sometimes in the creative arts, you've got to push. And if you go too far, you back up and say, we went too far there. And you back up and you go away and do it different. But you learn from your mistakes to do better. And that's really what we learned all through this incredible career of Amy Grant. So, thank you very, very much.
We're going to take a picture with Mike. Mike in the middle.
Move that mic stand. Yeah, there you go. Video?
Hey, I think I dropped my glasses somewhere. They're old sunglasses, but I gave them to you, thank you. I've had them for like 20 years, I know. I so love hearing Mike talk because it reminds me, it does take a village for anything to happen. And he was so creative and so driven. And I love hard work. I do. It can be manual labor. I just like hard work. And I did work hard for decades. But I just think if I had never met Mike, I just would have happily done something else and not music. Isn't that weird? I'm sure all of our lives are that way, that your path will cross somebody that changes the trajectory. It just would have been a different life, not a better life, not a worse life, just a different life. And anyway, so like I'm looking at this farm and all of us under this structure, and we built this in 2020 after my father had passed. This was basically my inheritance from my father. And sometimes I go, you're an idiot that you built this. Like, why did I do this? But I can't explain it. I just try to listen to my gut and go where that tells me, and be present. But anyway, there's no point to that except for I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful that my path crossed Mike Blanton's, and mostly because of how his influence influenced my faith and gave me things to write about. And now, we're at a different chapter, and what I love is community, and I love using what I have for other people to benefit. And you might have all heard this story, but I've invited another friend of mine to come up and tell a little bit about what sort of the ongoing journey and how our connectedness continues to affect our path, all of us. But I wouldn't have ever been able to buy this farm had I not had a successful music career. I would have lived a much more modest life. But back in 1994, this farm was about to be developed by a developer onto multi-home. Anyway, it was going to be a lot going right out onto a road that could never be enlarged because of the Harpeth River. There's a lot of history through here. There are burial grounds from the Mississippian Indians, which back, 1,000 or more years ago went from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico. And there's just so much local history here. And 3 families went in to buy this farm. And Michael W. Smith, myself, and Mike and Lee Ann Jones. And we did it just to protect the land, which we would not have been able to do had Michael and I not had music careers. And it's so weird to think about that. And so after about 20 years of owning this property, I was on a drive with my father, who was advanced dementia by then, had my 2 sisters, 2 of my 3 sisters in the back, and an extended family friend. And we were driving around, and I said, I keep feeling like the farm has a bigger purpose. And when all of us women were together, because my father had lost the ability to carry on a conversation, the dementia attacked his communication skills first. And so, even though he was a retired physician and such a smart man, and so rather than do our normal Sunday drives through downtown Nashville or old neighborhoods, just trying to find anything that looked familiar to him, I said, could we drive out at the farm? Because I just feel like, I feel like that land is speaking to me. And we did. And we just drove through fields. It's mostly woods. It's about 450 acres. And I said, I just keep feeling like this is meant for a bigger purpose. And I don't know what that is. And one of my sisters said, just dream out loud. And I said, well, okay. I always feel refreshed and revived when I get out in nature. It's like I get this new perspective of God and the bigger picture of life. And nobody has to explain it to me. You can't screw it up with communication. It just is. It's like nature is a portal for me to wonder and awe. And when I can find a ready portal to wonder and awe, it is an easier way for me to experience God. And anyway, so I'm just going, what if like we could bring children out here? What if I just imagine just road-weary women come out and have a retreat, not make it fancy, because once you try to compete in the fancy world, everybody has an expectation it's unmeetable. But what if it's always primitive? What if and I'm just dreaming all these specific scenarios, just making it up as I go, and I was so emotional. And like tears were going down my face, and the three women in the back were like, just keep dreaming. Of course, now I know our words and our thoughts are our thoughts almost direct our path. And anyway, so at the time, we drove, and then one of the women in the back said, whew, I think we should just get out of this car and circle up and say a prayer that you stay out of the way. Like, what if this is the adventure of the rest of your life? And I thought, oh my gosh, what if it is? And so we drove up to there are three little cabins that were reassembled there, two cabins and a little clapboard, one room structure from the 1800s. And my mom's ashes are buried up there. And so we just parked and circled around, and my dad, of course, had not said a word because nothing he said ever made sense, and he was just fixated on the seatbelt. He had on his pull-up, he was sitting on a pee pad. I just want you to know how diminished my father was. And anyway, and so the four women, we circled around to pray, just God, on the beginning, on the front end of something, you don't have any idea where it might take you. And Sherry, the one that wasn't my sister, put her hand through the open window. We kind of clustered around the car where my dad was. And he was oblivious to us. And she put her hand on his chest and said, Doc, I miss my dad so much. I just want to have my hand on the dad. At which point, my father turned and actually looked at us, like noticed us. And he said, this is all gonna happen. And we were like, what? I didn't even know it was the most. And we sat there for a second, and then he said, with drama, and there will be great celebration. And then the next words out of his mouth were total gibberish. And I was like, oh my gosh, like what next? And I thought, I'm just gonna be open. Just be open. And the next Monday, or the next week, Monday or Tuesday, this was on a Sunday, like days later, I went to coffee with a man because we had a mutual friend who was dying. And he wanted us to meet, and I thought, well, I cannot change the doctor's report, but I can tell Mac I finally invited you to coffee. And it was a young man, and he had a camp in Kentucky and then did day camps to try to develop a feeder system for his overnight camp in Kentucky. And got kids of all different backgrounds, socioeconomic, rich, poor, Latino, black, Asian, white. He said, I want them to all be together in a loving environment and a simple faith message of welcome. And anyway, I said, I think my sister I have a memory that she was cutting carrots for that, like for your camp, and she was just wishing she had done something like pretzels that didn't involve so much cutting. And all he talked about was the camp in Kentucky. I said, "What? Do you have a national version of that?" And he said, "Yeah, well, we meet in, we just go to different churches, but we've had a hard time kind of organizing that." And I said, "Why don't you do that on a farm? Why are you having camp in a church?" And he said, "Well, we've never had access to a farm." Like this was days later, and it's just been such a journey. It's been a journey, not an easy journey. You know, I mean, every turn, like just, yeah, it is like climbing a mountain. Everything we do is like climbing a mountain. And anyway, so I wanted to invite Bruce Kolish, who was the president of the Gospel Music Association. And he is integral to some of the things that are happening here at the farm. And just, you know, Mike was like, dreamer, and bigger, wear that, sing this, write this. You know, I'm like, okay, you know. But all of that provided for the less, I don't know what to call the private work, I'll say it that. And so I asked Bruce, and Bruce is the only other speaker today. And thank you so much for your attention. And once again, everybody's life is a story. Everybody's life. Everything requires hard work. Everything. And anyway, but we all are a part of this story. And I cannot say that enough. This farm was purchasable because of the investment that you made. Bruce Kolish.
Sure, now the wasp comes out. Yeah. Hey, I'm going to be very brief. You've been attentive. And I was standing back here just looking at your faces and going, wow, if everybody who got up here could have that kind of attention. So, and it's so honoring for Amy, for all of us to see that. She has spoken into all of our lives in so many different ways. So I'm kind of a little bit of a left turn, but I'm going to keep this really short just to tell you a little bit what's going on. This farm is special. Most people, when they drive in and go through the gate, they say it's like we could just drop our luggage, we could drop everything that we're worried about, that we've been struggling with, and leave it there. And can't really explain why that happens. You could get deep and talk about the Indian culture and all these spiritual things and try to figure it out, but I really believe it's because of a couple of things. Number one, it starts with who Amy is as a person. Being incredibly generous and giving almost to a fault. And having her in so many people's lives that has made such a difference. I'm an example of one of those people. And I'm not here to talk about my music career, but boy, was that great. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Michael. Yeah. This pavilion, I look at it, 2020, November 2020, I live out here, and I call it affectionately my storage shed. The cooler name is Tiny Home. And I remember that morning when the first concrete truck was pulling up to pour this right here. And it was in fact, it's a beautiful picture because it was a crystal clear morning. And Amy said, well, I'm going to be there. And there was a big old diesel generator still sitting over here. And I've got these wonderful pictures of Amy sitting on top of that and watching the trucks come up and pouring the concrete. Watching the construction and deconstruction of our lives at times is something that we really can't comprehend or see a good ending many times without the love of God surrounding us. One reason this place is so special is Amy. The other is that God really resides here. We know he's everywhere, right? But I feel he's maybe just parked another trailer out here somewhere. Because his creation speaks to all of us. If you're a reader of scriptures at all, Romans 1, 20, 21 talks about that God revealed his character in his creation to the point that none of us have an excuse to say we don't know him. So here it is all around us, even the cicadas. That was kind of creepy seeing them all crawl out and onto the tents down here. So what has come through all this, there's a lot I could say. I just want to, very high level, just say over the course of the years, Amy has opened the door for this farm with great sensitivity to who she believes God is wanting to work through to come here. One of the common things I've seen is the desire of people to acknowledge their brokenness. I mean, as I think of all the programs, Barefoot, Keep the Fire, Music Therapy of the Rockies, which is a music therapy program for veterans. What we've started out here, Hope in the Gate, which is a place for homeless individuals from various rescue missions to come for a couple of days to tell their stories of their severe brokenness. And to have leading songwriters hear those stories and translate them, use that inspiration to put it into a song form, so that we have vehicles to tell more people about the humanity of we often think of as the most broken. But through this, Amy and I have talked many times, and I remember so many conversations in my own life, she would say, we're just all messy. We are all messy and broken people. I hate to break that to you because you look pretty good to me, but so all of those years with Michael and Dan and the industry that was behind this, and the wonderfully talented people, and Amy being out there and, like I say, kind of clawing and scratching, don't take me out there. You know, look what God has done. And it's provided this place, not just through the story of her music and her records, videos, and everything else she has done, but the story that really not too many people get to see. And I'm constantly walking around here with tears in my eyes because the stories of people who have been healed here and helped and given encouragement to not quit, to keep going, is pretty wonderful. I am privileged to kind of live out the simple life that I think Amy really always desired. You know, why she don't choose me. So now on her farm, I feel a lot of times like I get to live that simple life. And simple life is a place to reflect on God's goodness, to see him and feel him everywhere. It's a safe place. It's a safe place. We all need a safe place because we all have things. We need a safe place. And when we find that safe place in the midst of God's creation, we find healing. And when we find healing together, we find a fantastically wonderful community of people who aren't there to judge us or condemn us, but to encourage us. This is what she has done. This is what you have done. Every ticket you've purchased, every album. It was great to see vinyl again up here, man. We used to throw those that didn't sell too well, and I had my 12-gauge shotgun. We used to use them to shoot. But that's another story. So yeah, all of that is you participating, a community of people who love each other. You don't know each other, you love each other because together we're all here to do our part. And certainly we've seen God do that marvelously in Amy's life. So, you know, you've been here a long time sitting here and there's a lot going on, but, you know, say a little prayer for this property. Wow, we just had during I'll close with this. this. When these songs are written at the retreats that I'm involved with, on a Wednesday night, we bring in some of the top studio players here in Nashville, and we have the songwriters, and we perform these new songs. We were down in the barn. We do that in the barn loft. I'm constantly thinking this is songs from the other loft that's developing. And tornadoes were coming, and we had to go down to the bottom of the barn, thinking, okay, this barn has stood for over 100-some years. Certainly, it's got to be safe, right? Or the safest place. So we were there together, and one of the writers was on the phone with his wife, who was in the bathtub at his home in Columbia, and she was hysterical because the storm was about to hit. And right in the midst of that, I look up, and here comes this gal with a big raincoat over the top of her head, and it's Amy. Of course, she's not going to miss this thing, tornadoes or not. But we went up in the barn, we shared the night together. The healing that took place there is amazing. And the healing that takes place when there's 250 kids running crazy out here and screaming is beautiful. Community is happening. People are coming together. So anyway, you get the picture. You are and you have made all of that possible. Because without you, there would be a big empty room. You know, that's the fact of the matter. It's why Amy and Jennifer and the staff and the team really love to do these things and have you around and appreciate your support and love. So let's just, whenever you think of the farm, just think of this beautiful place where people are being healed and be thankful that you've been a part of that, okay? You have a great rest of the day.
Is Mike still here? Back there. Mike Blanton interviewed me in December of 1989, and I was hired to be Mike and Dan's assistant. You didn't hear from Dan today. He's kind of the business brain behind Mike's creativity. Mike would dream it and Dan would fund it, is basically, or find a way to fund it. And I was asked to join them and be their assistant, and I did super important things like keeping the mini fridge stocked with Diet Cokes. They called that desk death row because most people didn't survive it a year. But we hit it off famously, and I know I have had a lot of compliments online this week and in person from you guys, and I want to acknowledge I'm going to try the wiggling my toes thing so I don't cry. But I want to acknowledge the change in my life that happened because Mike Blanton gave me a chance. A girl from Los Angeles who was involved in the music industry out there that had attended an Amy Grant concert with her little sister. And our whole entire family was at the Ryman last night. Big life change. And I can never honor Mike and Dan enough. I try, but I can't. I love them dearly, and I'm so glad because in this day and age of social media, you guys have kind of gotten to know me and much less the powers that be that kind of created this whole thing. So that's why I really wanted Mike to come and share with you. So thank you, Mike. I love you so much. And I thought it was interesting with Bruce because as we have all been focused so much on these Ryman shows and all the glitz and glam of concerts and this and that, here were people, homeless people in a rescue program also housed at this farm this week. And it is both things. As Amy says all the time, it's all of it, all the time. And so anyway, we wanted you to kind of hear both of those stories today. So we are going to end now, and we are going to ask you all to please make a safe but quick exit because we have volunteers that actually need to get to the Ryman, and we can't leave this farm not cleaned up, and it's a short day for us. So if you can just head on that way. Thank you so much. We love you. Thank you for being here.